It is a great read. It's by Ron Kessler, who we had on before to talk about it, but now it's out in paperback. In the President's Secret Service. Ron, how are you?
Very good, and great to be back with you.
Well, it's always our pleasure. You know, you tell some inside stories, and we had so many people last time that didn't get to hear it and want to hear some of these things. What are some of the juicier things that you uncovered in the behind the scenes with some of these agents?
Well, Jimmy Carter was known as the most detested president by the Secret Service agents. He was just so phony. He would pretend to carry his own luggage in front of the cameras, but it was actually empty. Or he would go into the Oval Office at 5 in the morning and tell the press office to tell the press that he was in there working hard for the American people, but then he'd fall asleep on the sofa. Lyndon Johnson was the most out-of-control president. He would have sex with his secretaries. One time, Lady Bird caught him having sex with a secretary in the Oval Office, and LBJ blew up at the Secret Service and said, "You should have warned me," and told him to install a buzzer system so that next time they would warn him that Lady Bird was around. He was so gross. He would urinate in front of female reporters. Of course, back then the press never reported those things.
Right.
He would sit on the toilet and discuss policy matters with aides. And then
maybe I should have picked them dogs up with the mirrors. Maybe I've been better off doing that. I mean, you know, Bill Clinton. I mean, he comes along and then he, you know, first time. Well, I know the first time, but he gets involved in that. And LBJ, you're saying, was much worse than Clinton.
Yeah, and Hillary Clinton was very nasty. One time she was going up to a fundraiser in upstate New York when she was running for the Senate, and she looked out the window and she saw these farmers wearing jeans and cows around, and she started screaming at the aide who had arranged this and said, "What the F are we doing here? They don't have any money." And of course, she also fired a White House usher because he returned a call of Barbara Bush, her predecessor, who was just looking for help with her laptop. He had taught her how to use it. She was in a big panic. He called her back to try to help her, and for doing that, Hillary fired her. And this guy had 4 kids and could not find a job for a year.
Wow! Just for calling the ex-first lady back to help her with her computer?
Yeah, absolutely true. Hard to believe.
Well, not really. Now that we've known more about Hillary, it's not really that hard to believe, is it?
Yeah. And then on the other side of the coin, you have George H.W. Bush, who, when he was vice president and was at the residence where the vice president stays, around 3 in the morning, one of the Secret Service agents was prowling around the kitchen looking for these cookies that the Navy stewards always made, and he was having trouble finding them, and he heard this voice behind him. It was George H.W. Bush. "Where are the cookies?" And they went looking for them and found them and had them together with milk.
unlike Carter or LBJ or Clinton, yeah. So
yeah, and Ronald Reagan was also a very genuine guy behind the scenes. He would schmooze with the agents. He would watch TV with them, but he was not perfect. One time, he was up at the ranch and he wanted to go horseback riding with Nancy, and she wasn't big on that. She liked to talk to her friends in Beverly Hills on the phone, and he was ringing this bell for her to come out. She wasn't coming out. He finally went in, brought her out. They both looked sort of unhappy. Secret Service found that the telephone in the ranch house was not working, apparently off the hook, some problem with it. They went in, and it turned out Nancy had been on the phone with one of her friends, and Reagan was so enraged, he took the phone and smashed it on the floor.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Just like in the cowboy movies that he used to be in.
So he had a little bit of a temper every once in a while, huh?
He did, yeah, behind the scenes.
And how many of these agents did you talk with about all this? I mean, you're bound to have interviewed a bunch of them.
I talked with over 100, including current agents, including the current administration. I was able to go to the training center and see how they train agents and interviewed the top people, including the director. But it turned out that this also, besides telling what's behind the scenes and how they operate, it also turned out to be an expose because the Secret Service has been cutting corners ever since Homeland Security took it over in 2003, to the point where they'll actually not do magnetometer screening, or they'll shut it down early at events, just because they're overmanned, they're undermanned, and they have this complacent attitude. And it's not the agents who are at fault; they're very brave and dedicated, but the management just has this culture of, we're the great Secret Service and we know better and we don't have to worry about all this. Well, we could have an assassination tomorrow. Look at the Salahis, penetrating the White House during the state dinner.
Right.
That never should have happened, and that is a result of the corner cutting that goes on.
So you think that is? So how does something like that happen? They try to blame it on the event planner or whatever, but somebody's got to vet these people before they come in, and that's the Secret Service that does that.
Sure, that's basic. Even at a high-profile party, you do that. But in this case, the Secret Service uniformed officers consciously ignored the fact that these people were not on the guest list and didn't check to find out if they should have been. Why would someone do that? Well, because of all the corner cutting, the tremendous overtime they work, the tremendous pressure they're under, and the fact that the Secret Service bows to political pressure. For example, Mary Cheney, when she was under protection, Dick Cheney's daughter, would try to get agents to take her friends to restaurants. Well, they're not taxi drivers. They refused. And because of that, she got her detail leader removed. So what does that tell you? The management is backing the guy, is not supporting the guy who's doing his job.
Right.
And I think these uniformed officers at the White House thought, gee, if we turn away this glamorous couple at the state dinner, we might suffer repercussions if they were supposed to be there. We're not going to take a chance. We'll just let him in.
And they let him in, and it could have been a disaster.
Exactly. There was no background check. They could have been terrorists. They could have had chemical weapons. They could have taken a knife off a table and stabbed the president. And really, according to current agents that I talked to, the president's life is in jeopardy. And we saw that with JFK and with Abraham Lincoln, both of whom did not take protection seriously. And in the case of JFK, he rejected advice from the Secret Service that agents ride on the rear running board of his limousine in Dallas. If they had been there, they would have jumped on JFK after the first shot, which was not fatal, and they would have protected him from that fatal shot. Lincoln, same thing, didn't want protection, finally agreed to it just before his assassination, but agreed to only one D.C. police officer. Secret Service didn't exist then. And this one police officer decided to go off and have a drink at the local tavern on the night of the assassination, and that's how that happened.
Yeah, so it's letting their guard down. Tell me about the Bush girls. Were they hard to handle?
They were the hardest to handle. They just didn't understand protection. They didn't like the idea that as teenagers they were somehow different because they had agents around, even though the agents would wear jeans and try to blend in. And so
they wanted to go off and get in trouble. That's what they wanted to do. They didn't want anybody around finding out.
Yeah. So Jenna would actually go through red lights sometimes trying to evade her agents. She wouldn't tell them where she was going or when. They had to conduct surveillance of her car to find out when she was leaving. Barbara was almost as bad. One time, Jenna was at a Halloween party with Henry Hager, who's now her husband, and he got so drunk that the Secret Service had to take him to the hospital. Another time, he almost got into a fight at a bar in Georgetown. But in the paperback, which is out this week of In the President's Secret Service, I have a new chapter which goes into both the Salahi intrusion and the fact that a secret task force has been created within the FBI to track threats against Obama because they've risen so much since Bush was in office. They've been up almost as high as 400%. And so this task force has a combination of FBI agents, Secret Service agents, CIA officers, NSA officers, to track terrorist threats as well as domestic terrorist threats.
Interesting. Well, it's all in paper book now, In the President's Secret Service by Ron Kessler. Ron, appreciate it very much. Good luck with the paperback version.
Well, thanks for having me back.
All right.